Hello YouTube, Mark here. This is a Unity tutorial that's going to use mirror networking and combining it with an animated third-person controller. I've chosen mirror for my networking on my Bio-Rebellion MMO science fiction game project because it allows for a standalone authoritative server that you can run on AWS in the cloud, and it seems to be better suited for MMOs than Photon. So this will be a basic hello world type tutorial that will combine the controller and multiplayer functionality with mirror networking. First thing we need to do is we're going to get the mirror package. It's free. We go to the Unity asset store, obviously, search for mirror or mirror networking, and you're going to add that to your assets. After you added mirror to your assets, we're going to search for starter assets character controller. What we want is the third person, so it'll look like this. Starter assets third person character controller, and we'll want to add that to our assets as well. After getting the assets from the asset store, I'm going to open up Unity, start a new project, 3D, and then after you start a new project 3D, you're going to go to your window package manager, going to go to my assets from the package manager, and you'll want to import mirror, and you're going to import the starter assets third person controller. Now, you may receive some errors when you import these packages depending on how up to date your Unity is. I encountered an error. Resolve it. If you come across an error, you may want to go to your package manager once again and select in project, and you'll want to make sure that these are up to date. Your in project packages. In my case, my Text Mesh Pro wasn't up to date and it was causing an error. So when I updated that, it did away with the error. Your errors may differ. You might not get any errors at all. Let me know if I can help if you're receiving an error, but it's most likely that you haven't updated your packages. So make sure they're updated. Secondly, what we're going to do is we're going to go into File, Build Settings, and in Player Settings, in the bottom left there, then you're going to scroll down and you're going to come to the configuration where yours will probably say .NET Standard 2.0. You want to change that to .NET 4.x. That is necessary for mirror to work properly. So that should be all the settings, and now we can get started with making a hello world networked scene. Alright, now that we have all our packages in, we have mirror and your starter third person controller. Should be no errors in the console. What we want to do is from starter assets, under your assets, we're going to click in there, expand that, go down to third person controller, expand that, go down to scenes, and we're going to double click on playground. This will bring up a sample scene for a third person controller. Give it a try. hit play, take a look around here, shift, WSD and arrow keys, space to jump. And what this is, this scene has it's combining some animations with a third-person controller and a camera controller. So it has all the basics, and it's nice and smooth. And this is what we're going to use as our character to be networked in our Hello World networking game. All right, now let's network this bitch. Make an empty game object. Create empty. Call it Network Manager. And you're going to add two components. You're going to add Network Manager. And you're going to add Network Manager HUD. To player armature, we're going to add three components. The first one will be a network ID or network identity. Second component will be network transform. Third component, what the heck's going on here? Oh, it's pissing me off. Am I seized up? All right. Third component will be network animator. In the network transform component, you're going to click on client authority right here. And then in the network animator component, you're also going to click on client authority. And we'll respect the authority. Also, we actually have to feed this the animator. So on the network animator, what you're going to do is scroll up and grab the animator component and drag it into that field down here. So now it knows what to look at. Okay. Now, grab the player armature, drag it into the directory where the scenes are at. And you can go ahead and erase player armature from the hierarchy of the scene now that it's in the directory as a prefab. Click on Network Manager. And then the Network Manager component on the Network Manager object, you want to drag that prefab into, there's a place to set your player prefab in here. And I haven't had my coffee, and this is like running in water trying to deal with this. I might just call it a day and drink beer, but I can't. I gotta get this done. All right, what was it? Right here in the Network Manager component where it says player prefab, right now it's none. What we're going to do is drag the prefab we just made. It's in the directory, and boom. And it doesn't work. I suck again. Why doesn't it work? We're missing something. We have a network identity. That's usually the problem. Why am I sucking? This really should work. Oh, dragging it into wrong. I'm dragging it on authenticating. All right, Yeah, drag it into player prefab. Jeez. I got all Biden-like there. All right. Now that we have our player prefab set up with the networking components, and we have our scene set up with the network manager, we have to make a distinction between when this player prefab is instantiated and we're supposed to control it, and when the player prefab is instantiated in the network scene and another person's supposed to control it. So what's happening in the network scene, when we log in, this instantiates and we control that prefab through components like player input and the character controller, third-party character controller. Now, when somebody else logs in and this player prefab is instantiated in the network scene, we don't want the controller and the player input to be on that particular prefab, because that will also be listening to our input as well. So we have to write a script to determine when a player prefab's instantiated, is that to represent us or is that to represent somebody else? If it's us, meaning is local player, if it's us, then we want these controllers to be on and listening for player input, and we control it. When this player prefab here is instantiated and someone else is to control it, we want to turn these off. Otherwise, they will also be taking input from our character, from our keyboard input and so forth. So what we're going to do is we're going to disable this character controller. I'm going to disable the third person controller, and we're going to disable player input. And we're going to write a script that when the player animator is instantiated, it's going to check to see if that's supposed to be the player that represents us here in the network scene. And if it is, we turn these back on. And if when other people log in, when it instantiates, it determines that's to represent somebody else, and we just leave these off, which is our default value from here forth. Okay? So, disable character controller, disable third person controller, and disable player input, and now we'll make our script. We're going to make a script. Right click in your directory, create script. And we're going to call it enable components. Dear God, why is this so slow? What is running in the background? All right. Double click on that, open up your editor. All right, first things first. This might be a little too small for you guys to see, so I'm going to increase the font here. All right, hopefully that's a little better. All right, we're not going to need an update. Get rid of that. This whole thing is going to be under the namespace, starter assets. So I'm going to put this whole thing, the whole class under the namespace starter assets. Now, I'm going to be using mirror. Using mirror. We're going to be using Unity Engine input system. So Unity Engine input system, and we're going to be using Cinemachine. C-I-N-E-M-A-C-I-N. Okay. Now, that should be it for what we're using, I believe. Start assets. All right. Now, this public class, not going to be mono behavior. We're going to be extending place mono behavior with network behavior. Network behavior. Action. Oh. So we're going to be taking in
Transmission 11, received 68, December 30, 05.
a transform, public transform. I'm going to call it target. Then in start, if is local player, open close. I'm going to grab the character controller, so character controller, we'll call it CC, equals get component, character controller, open close at the end, and we're going to enable that CC dot enabled equals true, semicolon. Next, we're going to grab the third person controller and do the same thing. Third person controller, we'll call it TPC. You know me, down with TPC. Get component, third person controller on, and we're going to enable that TPC. Oh, that song's in my head now. Enabled equals true. What else? What else? All right. What's that? The player input system. Player input. Call it PI equals get component. Same thing. Player input. Close. PI dot enabled equals true. All right, now that player follow cam, that's a game object. So game object, call it PFC equals, so we're gonna find that game object, right? So what's that? That's game object dot find and then in quotes you're gonna do player, and don't screw this up. If you do a typo here, I won't find it. Player follow, capital F, camera, capital C, semicolon. So game object PFC equals game object dot find, open brackets, and then open quotes, player follow camera, close quote, close parentheses. Okay, that should be it. Now we're going to get the cinema machine off of that game object, right? Yeah. So next is cinema machine. Cinema machine virtual, right? Machine virtual camera. Yep. Man, look at that thing. Virtual camera. I want to see that again. Cinema machine. Sin machine. Virtual. There it is. Wow. All right. All right. Well, that's some reading before bedtime tonight, but we don't need to deal with that right now. Sim machine virtual camera. And we'll call that CVC. How about that? As opposed to PFC. CVC equals. Now that's a component on PFC, so it'll be PFC dot get component. Boom. And that will be a big ass sim machine virtual camera. Virtual camera. And then open and close parentheses. And now we have to set the target of this thing. So it's simply CVC dot follow equals target. Right. I'll try to explain all this mess now. I think that's it. All right. So, making a script to enable those components that are specifically on the player that's assigned to our local connection. That way we won't have controllers and cameras on players that aren't ours. Follow me? So, this transform target, what that is the target that virtual camera cinema machine follows. That I believe that's on our player, on his neck. The character controller, the third person controller, and the input system. That's all the stuff, when we type, that translates, or whatever input system we're using, that translates into the movement of our local player, and the networking components on there send that off to the host, right? We don't have to worry about that. That's all taken care of. All we have to do is just put this on. Let's see, do we have any errors here? No. Save it. Okay, we're going to stick this on our player prefab. So go back to Unity. Now we're going to wait for this thing to compile. Now, drag that script onto your player prefab. Boom. Let's check out. Click on the player prefab. Now there's one more thing to do here. This target, right? We have to set that to. Scroll up and hit open prefab so we can see that in the hierarchy. Expand this player armature. All right. You see this player camera root? All right, click back on your player armature in your prefab in the directory there. Scroll down. Now simply drag player camera root onto target. Bam. There is one last quick script we're going to make before we build and try this out. This last script will make our life a lot easier because the player controller right now it hides the cursor, and we'll want to have something that allows us to escape out and show the cursor again. So right click in your directory and create a C script, C# script, called it hide lock cursor. And double click on that to open it in your editor. All right, get rid of the start. We're going to have a public variable, public, it's going to be a type bool. I'm going to call it lock cursor, set it equal to true. Inside update, if input dot get key down, open parentheses, key code dot escape, open and close parentheses, lock cursor equals not lock cursor.
As your attorney, I advise you to take a hit out of the little brown bottle in my shaving kit.
And then outside of the if brackets, we have cursor dot lock state cursor lock mode equals lock cursor question mark dot locked colon cursor lock mode dot none semicolon. All right, so what this is going to do, if you hit escape, it's going to alternate between lock cursor and unlock cursor, and then set the cursor lock state equal to lock cursor. If it is locked, then it'll unlock it. All right, and then cursor dot visible equals not lock cursor. Cursor.visible equals exclamation mark lock cursor semicolon. And that should do it. Save it. And then once you save it, wait for that to compile. After it compiles, we're going to drag this HUDLock cursor script onto our network manager. Okay. All right, that should do it. We're ready to build. All right, it's time to build. Go to build settings. Make sure that you add open scenes and that the only scene is selected is the open scene that you have right now. Oh yeah, before I forget, real quick, player settings, you want to make this windowed, so go down to resolution, presentation, and player settings, and make sure that we're not in full screen. Make sure we're windowed, and select whatever resolution seems to be appropriate for you. That way we can run two at the same time. And then you're going to build. I already have a folder here called build. If you don't have one, right click and make a folder and then select that folder. Go ahead and build. We'll wait for it to complete. All right, navigate down to your build directory, double click on the exe, hit escape. Now run the exe again. So we have two clients here. Put them side by side. I'll hit escape because your cursor's locked. Hit escape. So on one of the windows, hit the host server client combination, and we instantiate it into the world, into the scene. Walk forward, and then on your other client, hit the client button, and look at that. We are in both clients, and we are networked. There it is. That's the hello world of turning a single player character controller with animation into a network character controller animation in mirror networking. Now, obviously, I've left out a lot. This is the absolute bare minimum, but hopefully that's enough to get you started. If you want some more of these videos, please leave a like and subscribe. And if you're subscribed, I'll answer any questions you have down in the comments. I'll do the best I can to help you out. this was my first Unity tutorial, so it's probably a little rough, but I hope to improve and bring a lot more tutorials in the future. Have a good one. Peace out.